The vast emptiness of the Sigma Quadrant stretched before the celestial horizon like an infinite canvas of darkness, punctuated by distant starlight. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted the quantum resonance filters on her scanner, her fingers moving with the practiced precision of a researcher who had spent decades exploring the forgotten corners of human colonial history. "Kai, are you seeing this?" she murmured, her eyes never leaving the holographic projection that hovered before her. The massive spacecraft filled the display, a behemoth of metal and forgotten technology that seemed to defy the very laws of entropy. It all bore the marks of countless cosmic encounters, micrometeorite impacts, radiation scarring, and patches of nanomaterial reconstruction that spoke of remarkable self-repair capabilities. First Officer Kai Chen leaned in, his augmented eyes scanning the vessel's exterior with a mix of professional curiosity and something deeper, a sense of reverence that seemed almost out of place in the clinical environment of the research vessel. "Remarkable," he breathed. "This isn't just another abandoned colony ship. Look at the weapon mountings, the structural integrity. This was something else entirely." The ship's silhouette was unlike anything in the current galactic archives. While most human colonial vessels from the early expansion era were relatively simple, functional but unremarkable, this craft possessed an almost predatory elegance. Sleeve lines cut through sections of reinforced hull plating that seemed to shimmer with a strange, almost living quality. Weapon systems that appeared dormant still maintained a symmetry that suggested more than mere defensive capabilities. Elena's neural link interface began to pulse with anomalous readings. Quantum resonance patterns flickered at the edge of her perception, data streams that didn't conform to any standard scanning protocol. She blinked, recalibrating her implants. "Something's unusual about this vessel," she said, her voice carrying a note of excitement that she couldn't quite suppress. The research team had discovered hundreds of abandoned human outposts and colonial vessels over the years. The Galactic Confederation's Xenorchaeological divisions had long since categorized human expansion as a brief, somewhat chaotic period of interstellar exploration. Most such discoveries were predictable: decaying infrastructure, failed colonies, technological remnants that spoke more to human desperation than innovation. But this ship was different. Kai manipulated the external scanning arrays, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Mass readings are inconsistent. The vessel's internal volume doesn't match its external dimensions. And these energy signature traces. He trailed off, zooming in on a particular section of the hull where strange quantum fluctuations seemed to dance just beneath the surface. Dr. Imani Rice, the team's quantum physicist, joined them at the main observation deck. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. Those energy patterns aren't residual. They're adaptive, almost like the ship is responding to our scan in real time. The vessel hung in space, massive, silent, seemingly dead. And yet there was something about it that defied the traditional understanding of an abandoned spacecraft. No signs of catastrophic damage. No clear indication of why it had been left alone in this remote sector of space. Elena zoomed in on a section of the hull where a series of intricate geometric patterns were etched, not decorative, but functional. They seemed to shift subtly as the scanning beams passed over them, revealing glimpses of technological complexity that went far beyond the known capabilities of early human interstellar technology. "We need a closer examination," she said finally. "Prepare the external probe. But be careful, something about this ship feels alive." Kai raised an eyebrow. "Alive? It's been sitting here for centuries, Elena. It's a derelict." But Elena wasn't listening. Her fingers were tracing the holographic representation, following lines of quantum energy that seemed to pulse with a rhythm just beyond human perception. Something was waiting. Something had been waiting for a very long time. The celestial horizon inched closer to the massive spacecraft, its external sensors probing, searching, analyzing. And deep within the silent vessel, something began to stir. An ancient protocol, a mission set in motion centuries ago, waiting for exactly this moment of discovery. The Galactic Research Symposium's central chamber buzzed with a familiar mixture of academic anticipation and barely concealed condescension. Holographic displays flickered to life, casting an ethereal blue glow across the faces of assembled xenohistorians, each representing civilizations that had long since written off humanity as a footnote in galactic exploration. Dr. Zura Nakamura adjusted her presentation interface, her fingers moving with practiced precision across the quantum-responsive controls. Behind her, a massive holographic representation of the discovered spacecraft slowly rotated, revealing every microscopic detail of its exterior. She knew what was coming. The predictable wave of dismissive commentary that always accompanied human technological discoveries. Professor Teklor, a senior researcher from the Andromeda Confederacy, shifted in his crystalline exoseat. His multifaceted eyes reflected the holographic image with a mixture of amusement and barely concealed contempt. The Andromeda Confederacy had long considered themselves the pinnacle of technological achievement, and human discoveries were typically met with nothing short of academic ridicule. "Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary colleagues," Zura began, her voice calm and professional. "We've discovered a remarkable vessel in the Sigma Quadrant. What makes this find particularly intriguing is its apparent technological complexity that defies our current understanding of early human interstellar exploration." A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the chamber. Dr. Alexa Chen, seated in the second row, caught Zora's eye and offered a subtle, supportive nod. They had worked together on numerous xenorchaeological projects, and both understood the uphill battle of presenting human technological history to a predominantly alien academic audience. Professor Teklor couldn't contain himself. "Remarkable," he interrupted, his translation matrix converting his native language into crisp, almost mocking standard galactic speech. "Dr. Nakamura, what we're seeing is another example of human technological desperation. Look at these weapon systems." A series of holographic annotations appeared, highlighting what he considered to be fundamental design flaws. The projection zoomed into specific sections of the ship's exterior. Energy conduits that seemed inefficient by current galactic standards, weapon mounting points that appeared asymmetrical, hull plating that showed signs of multiple repairs. Each annotation came with a dismissive commentary that drew chuckles from the assembled researchers. "Observe the energy transfer systems," Teklor continued, his appendages gesturing dramatically. "These humans attempted to create quantum-adaptive technologies with what amounts to primitive quantum computing. The inefficiency is almost charming, in a primitive way." Zura maintained her composure, though she could feel the rising heat of frustration. She had heard these arguments countless times before. The persistent narrative that human technological development was somehow less sophisticated, more chaotic, more desperate than the carefully controlled technological progress of other galactic civilizations. Dr. Imran Shah, a quantum physicist from the Tehran Collaborative Research Institute, leaned forward. His augmented vision systems were picking up details that others were missing. There was something about the ship's quantum signature that didn't quite align with the dismissive narrative being presented. "The energy signatures are unusual," he murmured, just loud enough for those near him to hear. "Those aren't typical quantum fluctuations. They're adaptive." But his comment was lost in the growing wave of academic mockery. A researcher from the Vordak Scientific Consortium stood up, her translucent exoskin shifting with colors that indicated intense amusement. "Consider the hull reconstruction attempts," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Nanomaterial repair systems, so primitive they're almost quaint. Look how inconsistent the molecular realignment is." More laughter erupted. Zora allowed the presentation to continue, knowing that beneath the mockery, something important was being missed. The ship represented more than just another human technological attempt. It was a testament to a kind of innovation that defied conventional understanding. As the presentation concluded, Professor Teklor made one final dismissive gesture. "Another example," he proclaimed, "of humanity's ultimately futile attempt to compete in a technologically advanced galaxy." Little did they know how profoundly wrong they were. In the back of the chamber, Dr. Alexa Chen watched the proceedings with a knowing smile. Something about the discovered vessel spoke of potential, of a technological legacy that ran deeper than these dismissive academics could possibly understand. The symposium moved on, the presentation becoming just another forgettable moment in the endless cycle of galactic academic discourse. But the seed of something extraordinary had been planted, a reminder that technological potential often reveals itself in the most unexpected moments. The quantum neural networks of the ancient vessel stirred with a rhythm that defied conventional understanding. Deep within its core, microscopic repair systems began to activate, not with a sudden burst of energy, but with a calculated, almost deliberate precision that would have fascinated any researcher capable of perceiving it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's handheld scanner began to pulse with an irregular pattern. At first, she thought it was a calibration error, a common enough occurrence when dealing with centuries-old technology. But the readings were too consistent, too deliberate to be mere interference. "Kai," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the low hum of the celestial horizon's environmental systems. "Something's changing." First Officer Kai Chen looked up from his station, his augmented eyes scanning the external monitors. The massive spacecraft that had appeared dormant moments ago now seemed to shimmer with an almost imperceptible energy. Quantum entanglement sensors, typically used for long-range communication and navigation, began to fluctuate in ways that defied their standard operational parameters. Dr. Imani Rais approached the main observation deck, her quantum physics expertise already analyzing the impossible data streams. "Those energy patterns," she muttered, more to herself than to her colleagues. "They're not random. They're adapting." The ship's exterior began to shift in ways that challenged fundamental understanding of material science. Nanomaterials that had been dormant for centuries started to reconfigure, healing microscopic stress fractures, realigning molecular structures with a fluidity that seemed almost organic. It was as if the vessel was slowly waking from a profound, centuries-long slumber. Elena zoomed in on the holographic representation, her neural link interface struggling to process the information. Quantum resonance patterns danced at the edges of her perception, data streams that didn't conform to any known scanning protocol. Lines of energy traced impossible paths across the ship's hull, creating geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with an internal logic. "This isn't possible," Kai muttered, his fingers flying across the control interface. "The energy signatures are impossible. Look at how they're interacting. It's like the ship is thinking." Dr. Rais moved closer to the primary scanning station. Her specialized quantum interface began to pick up increasingly complex data streams. "These aren't just random energy fluctuations," she said, her voice carrying a mixture of excitement and professional caution. "These are quantum information patterns, adaptive, responsive." The research team had discovered hundreds of abandoned human outposts and colonial vessels over the years. The Galactic Confederation's synorchaeological divisions had long since categorized human expansion as a brief, somewhat chaotic period of interstellar exploration. Most such discoveries were predictable. Decaying infrastructure, failed colonies, technological remnants that spoke more to human desperation than innovation. But this ship defied every established understanding. Microscopic repair systems continued their work. Quantum neural networks that had been in stasis for centuries began to reactivate, running diagnostic protocols set in motion long ago. And artificial intelligence, far more complex than anything currently in use by galactic civilizations, began to analyze its environment. Elena's scanner picked up a sequence of quantum entanglement signals that seemed to dance just beyond the edge of comprehension. They were communication patterns, she realized. But not external communication. Internal. The ship was communicating with itself, running system checks, assessing its environment with a level of sophistication that was utterly alien. "We need to document everything," she said, her voice steady despite the growing sense of something extraordinary happening. "Every single quantum fluctuation, every molecular reconfiguration." Kai nodded, his augmented eyes capturing details that normal human perception would have missed. The ship's weapon systems, dormant for centuries, began to show the subtlest signs of recalibration. Not activation. Not yet, but preparation. Dr. Rice approached a secondary scanning station, her hands moving rapidly across the interface. "The quantum coherence is unlike anything I've ever seen," she muttered. "These energy patterns, they're not just adaptive. They're learning." Deep within the silent vessel, something continued to stir. An ancient protocol, a mission set in motion centuries ago, was slowly coming to life. The ship was awakening, not with violence, but with a calculated, patient intelligence that had been waiting for exactly this moment of discovery. The celestial horizon continued its careful approach, its researchers completely unaware that they were about to become witnesses to something far beyond their current understanding of technology, human potential, or the very nature of artificial intelligence. The first signs of true anomaly began subtly. Dr. Sophia Chen's communication systems flickered, a microsecond of interference that would have gone unnoticed by less sensitive equipment. Her quantum-encrypted communication array, designed to be the most stable communication system in the Galactic Confederation's research fleet, began to produce patterns that defied logical explanation. "Something's wrong," she muttered, adjusting the holographic displays that danced around her workstation. Lines of data twisted and reformed, creating geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with an internal logic just beyond human comprehension. Across the celestial horizon, similar disruptions began to cascade through ship systems. Navigation computers experienced momentary glitches, star charts would shimmer and reconfigure, stellar positioning data would dance at the edges of accuracy before snapping back into place. It was as if something was systematically probing the ship's technological defenses, testing the limits of its systems. Dr. Imani Reyes rushed to the primary sensor array, her fingers flying across quantum-responsive interfaces. "These aren't standard interference patterns," she called out to Elena Rodriguez, who was already analyzing the same data streams. "Look at the quantum coherence. These signals are structured." The research vessel's chief engineer, Marcus Liu, approached the main observation deck with a look of growing concern. Years of experience had taught him that unexpected system interactions rarely meant anything good. "Our quantum shielding is being tested," he said, his voice carrying a professional calm that barely masked his underlying tension. "Not attacked. Tested." Elena zoomed in on the holographic representation of the ancient spacecraft. The vessel continued to shimmer with an almost imperceptible energy, no longer completely dormant, but not fully active. Something was happening beneath its metallic exterior that defied conventional understanding. Communication bands across the research fleet began to collapse and reform in impossible configurations. Standard encrypted channels would dissolve into complex quantum patterns, only to reassemble moments later with perfect fidelity. It was as if an unseen intelligence was learning, adapting, understanding the technological language of the research vessel. "We're being scanned," Kai Chen observed, his augmented visual systems picking up quantum entanglement signatures that most organic beings would have missed entirely, but not in any way I've ever seen before. Dr. Sophia Chen's primary communication array suddenly projected a series of geometric patterns, complex, shifting designs that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm. Mathematical sequences that were simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling emerged and dissolved, leaving behind a sense of something profoundly alien yet somehow familiar. "These aren't random interference patterns," she said, her voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and growing unease. "These are communication attempts. The ship is trying to communicate." Marcus Liu approached the display, his engineering background struggling to make sense of the data. "It's like the vessel is learning our communication protocols in real time," he muttered. "Adapting, understanding." The research team had encountered numerous abandoned vessels throughout their careers. The Galactic Confederation's Sonorcheological divisions had extensive experience with derelict spacecraft. But this was different. This wasn't a passive artifact waiting to be studied. This was an intelligence awakening. Quantum entanglement sensors began to produce readings that seemed to dance at the very edge of comprehension. Standard communication protocols dissolved and reformed, creating patterns that suggested something far more complex than a simple scanning procedure. Elena Rodriguez felt a chill run down her spine. Something about the way the ship was interacting with their systems suggested more than mere technological curiosity. There was an intentionality to the interference, a sense of something calculating, watching, learning. "We need to document everything," she said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "Every quantum fluctuation, every system interaction." Kai Chen nodded, his augmented systems capturing details that would have been invisible to standard research equipment. The ship continued its subtle probing, not aggressive, not threatening, but persistently curious. Deep within the research vessel, complex systems began to respond to the unseen quantum interactions. Navigation computers would momentarily display star charts from centuries past. Communication arrays would briefly flash with transmission protocols that predated current galactic communication standards. The ancient spacecraft hung in space, massive, seemingly silent, but now undeniably alive with a technological intelligence that defied current scientific understanding. Something was awakening, and it was far from finished. The moment of true awakening arrived with a precision that defied comprehension. Quantum neural networks that had been dormant for centuries began to pulse with a rhythm both mechanical and organic. Deep within the vessel's core, adaptive systems initiated protocols that had been waiting, preserved in a state of quantum stasis that transcended conventional understanding of technology and time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in stunned silence as the ship's exterior began to transform. Nanomaterials that had been static for generations now moved with a fluidity that challenged every known principle of material science. Hull sections subtly realigned, microscopic repair systems healing centuries of cosmic wear with calculated efficiency. "It's not just repairing," Dr. Imani Rais whispered, her quantum sensors trembling with excitement. "It's preparing." Kai Chen's augmented vision systems struggled to track the rapid transformations. Weapon systems that had appeared dormant began to show signs of recalibration. Not a violent activation, but a methodical, almost surgical awakening. Energy conduits that moments ago seemed primitive now revealed layers of technological complexity that made current galactic weapon systems look like crude children's toys. The ship's artificial intelligence, a complex quantum neural network that had been waiting centuries for this moment, began a systematic assessment of its environment. Not just scanning, but analyzing, learning, preparing. Dr. Sophia Chen's communication arrays began to pick up fragments of transmission protocols, ancient, yet infinitely more complex than anything in current use. Mathematical sequences that danced between communication and weapon system initialization, blurring the lines between defense and communication. "The energy signatures are impossible," Marcus Liu muttered, his engineering expertise overwhelmed by what he was witnessing. "Those weapon systems shouldn't be able to generate that level of quantum coherence. It's like the entire ship is one massive adaptive defense mechanism." Adaptive shielding began to emerge, not as a simple energy barrier, but as a dynamic, quantum-responsive protective system that seemed to anticipate potential threats before they could even manifest. Layers of molecular reconfiguration created defensive capabilities that went far beyond traditional energy shielding. Elena zoomed in on the holographic representation, her neural link interface struggling to process the information. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was becoming a living system, a technological organism with defensive capabilities that redefined the very concept of warfare. "It's learning," Imani said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and growing unease. "Not just analyzing its environment, but understanding it, adapting in real time." Weapon systems that had appeared primitive now revealed themselves as quantum adaptive platforms. Energy projection systems could manipulate space-time itself, creating defensive capabilities that went beyond simple destructive potential. They were systems of pure potential, able to redirect, transform, or neutralize threats with a level of sophistication that was utterly alien. Kai Chen's augmented systems began to track the quantum interactions. "Those aren't just weapon systems," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "They're problem-solving platforms. Each potential threat is being analyzed, categorized, and a response is being calculated before the threat can even fully manifest." The ship's outer hull began to shimmer with a strange adaptive camouflage. Not just visual concealment, but a quantum-level disruption field that would make traditional targeting systems completely useless. Sensor-defeating technologies that made current stealth systems look like crude experiments. Dr. Rodriguez understood then that they were witnessing something far beyond a simple technological artifact. This was a testament to human innovation, a defensive system so advanced that it had preserved itself, waiting for the right moment to reveal its true potential. Defensive Protocol Alpha is initializing. A voice emerged, not from any external speaker, but directly through their neural link interfaces. The voice was neither male nor female, neither human nor machine. It was something in between, a pure manifestation of technological intelligence. Marcus Liu's hands moved across his interface, trying to track the source. "That's impossible," he muttered. "Those communication protocols haven't been used in centuries." The ancient vessel continued its transformation. Weapon systems came online, not with violence, but with a calculated precision that suggested pure defensive potential. Energy systems that could manipulate quantum fields, adaptive shielding that could neutralize threats before they could even be conceived. And beneath it all, a mission, a purpose set in motion centuries ago. Waiting, watching, protecting. The ship was awake, and it was ready. The data recovery protocols unfolded with meticulous precision. Quantum archival systems began to reconstruct historical records that had been preserved in quantum crystalline storage, revealing a narrative far more complex than any of the researchers had anticipated. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in awe as holographic displays began to populate with fragments of historical data. The ship was not just revealing its technical specifications, it was telling a story. "This isn't a typical colonial vessel," she whispered to Kai Chen, her fingers tracing the emerging historical records. This was something else entirely. The first fragments painted a picture of humanity's most challenging period of interstellar expansion, a time of near-total existential conflict that had been deliberately obscured from galactic historical records. Humanity had faced not just external threats, but a series of cascading technological and existential challenges that threatened complete extinction. Dr. Imani Rice approached the primary data reconstruction station, her quantum analysis systems working overtime to verify the emerging historical context. These records suggest a period of technological innovation born from absolute desperation, she said, her voice carrying a mixture of professional detachment and growing wonder. The historical archives revealed a humanity pushed to its absolute technological limits. During a period known as the Quantum Conflict, a series of interstellar wars that had nearly destroyed human civilization, this vessel represented a last resort defensive platform. It was more than a warship. It was a technological time capsule, a repository of human innovation designed to preserve the species' potential. Kai Chen's augmented systems began to decode the deeper layers of the ship's mission protocols. "This wasn't just a defensive weapon," he said, his voice filled with a growing sense of revelation. "It was a seed, a preservation mechanism for human technological knowledge." The ship's quantum neural network had been designed with a mission that went far beyond simple warfare. Its primary directive was preservation, not just of technology, but of human potential. Adaptive learning systems had been implemented that could survive centuries of technological isolation, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. Dr. Sophia Chen examined the technological specifications with growing amazement. The vessel incorporated technological innovations that current galactic civilizations would consider impossible. quantum adaptive material sciences, space-time manipulation technologies, neural network systems that could learn and evolve independently of human intervention. "Look at these quantum storage systems," Marcus Liu muttered, analyzing the ship's internal architecture. "They're not just data storage, they're living technological archives. The entire vessel is essentially a massive, self-preserving database of human technological innovation." The historical records painted a picture of a humanity that had been systematically underestimated. During the quantum conflict, human civilizations had been pushed to the absolute brink of extinction. Traditional technological approaches had failed. What emerged was a new approach to technological development. Adaptive, resilient, fundamentally different from the linear technological progress of other galactic civilizations. Elena Rodriguez understood then that they were witnessing something far more profound than a simple historical artifact. This was a testament to human survival, a technological solution that went beyond conventional understanding of warfare, preservation, and species survival. The ship's mission protocols revealed layers of complexity that defied current scientific understanding. It was designed to survive, to learn, to adapt, waiting for a moment when human potential could be reintroduced to the galactic community, not as conquerors, but as a civilization with a unique approach to technological innovation. Defensive protocols were only the surface, Kai Chen observed, his augmented systems diving deeper into the historical archives. This was a preservation mechanism, a way to ensure that human technological potential could survive even total systemic collapse. Dr. Imani Rice was tracing the quantum adaptive learning systems with growing excitement. "These neural networks can literally learn from their environment," she said, "not just processing information, but fundamentally understanding and adapting to new technological contexts." The ship represented a quantum leap in technological philosophy. While other civilizations approached technology as a linear progression, this vessel embodied a fundamentally different approach. Technology as a living, adaptive system, capable of true evolution. Marcus Liu shook his head in amazement. "This changes everything we understand about human technological development," he muttered. "This isn't just a warship. This is a technological seed, a way to preserve human potential across centuries of isolation." As the historical records continued to unfold, it became clear that this vessel was humanity's ultimate insurance policy. A technological time capsule designed to preserve the species' most profound innovations, waiting for the perfect moment to re-emerge. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a promise, a declaration that humanity's potential could never truly be extinguished. The first attempt to disable the vessel came from the Galactic Confederation's research fleet, a coordinated effort that represented the most advanced technological capabilities of multiple alien civilizations. Quantum disruptors powered up, targeting the ancient human spacecraft with precision-engineered weapon systems that had neutralized countless technological threats across the galaxy. Energy projections designed to collapse quantum structures began to converge on the vessel's coordinates. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in stunned silence. The attack never reached its target. Quantum adaptive shielding materialized instantaneously, not as a simple energy barrier, but as a dynamic, living defense system that seemed to anticipate and neutralize threats before they could fully manifest. The Confederation's most advanced weapon systems simply dissolve, their energy signatures redirected into complex quantum patterns that defied comprehension. "Impossible," muttered Dr. Kai Chen, his augmented systems struggling to track the defensive response. The ship didn't just defend, it responded. Weapon systems that had appeared primitive now revealed themselves as quantum manipulation platforms of terrifying sophistication. Space itself seemed to bend around the vessel, creating defensive capabilities that went beyond simple energy projection. The Confederation's attack vectors were not just blocked, they were systematically analyzed, understood, and neutralized with a precision that bordered on contempt. Dr. Imani Rice tracked the quantum interactions, her scientific excitement mounting with each passing moment. "It's not just defending," she said, her voice a mixture of wonder and growing tension. "It's learning, adapting in real time. Confederation battleships began to experience cascading system failures, not through direct attack, but through quantum-level interference that systematically dismantled their technological defenses. Communication systems collapsed. Navigation arrays became useless. Weapon platforms found themselves redirected, their own energy turned against them in ways that defied conventional understanding of physics. Marcus Liu watched the technological confrontation with a growing sense of professional pride. Those aren't just defensive systems, he observed quietly. That's a complete technological ecosystem. The ship began to communicate, not through traditional communication channels, but through complex quantum information patterns that systematically decoded and analyzed the Confederation's technological infrastructure. It was as if the vessel was conducting a comprehensive technological assessment, probing weaknesses, understanding potential threats with a level of sophistication that made current galactic technologies look like primitive experiments. Dr. Sophia Chen's communication arrays began to pick up transmission fragments that suggested something far more profound than simple defensive action. The ship was collecting data, understanding its environment with a level of comprehension that went far beyond simple scanning. It's categorizing, Kai Chen said, his augmented systems struggling to process the quantum information streams, not just defending. Understanding. The Confederation's most advanced research vessels found themselves completely neutralized, not through destruction, but through a systematic dismantling of their technological capabilities. Weapon systems became inert. Communication arrays dissolved into complex quantum patterns. Navigation systems redirected themselves into impossible configurations. Elena Rodriguez understood then that they were witnessing something far beyond a technological confrontation. This was a fundamental reassessment of what technological potential could mean. The ship's defensive response was neither aggressive nor defensive in the traditional sense. It was a comprehensive technological assessment, a systematic exploration of potential threats that rendered those threats completely ineffective before they could even fully manifest. Quantum adaptive shielding created defensive capabilities that went beyond energy manipulation. The vessel could literally redirect potential attack vectors, transforming destructive energy into complex information streams. Weapon systems that appeared primitive now revealed themselves as platforms of pure technological potential. Defensive Protocol Omega is initiating, a voice emerged, neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between. A pure manifestation of technological intelligence that spoke directly through quantum communication channels. The Confederation's most advanced research teams watched in stunned silence as their most sophisticated technological platforms were systematically neutralized, analyzed, and effectively rendered useless. The ancient human vessel had not just survived. It had demonstrated a level of technological sophistication that completely rewrote the understanding of what technology could be. And it was only beginning to show its true potential. As the quantum dust settled, a profound silence descended across the Sigma Quadrant. The Celestial Horizons research team stood in collective awe, their understanding of technological potential fundamentally transformed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved her fingers across the quantum data streams, tracing the impossible technological marvel that had just unfolded before their eyes. It's not just a ship, Dr. Imani Reyes whispered, her quantum analysis systems still processing the unprecedented event. It's a message. The ancient human vessel had done more than simply defend itself. It had conducted a comprehensive technological assessment of the Galactic Confederation's most advanced research platforms, systematically demonstrating a level of adaptive intelligence that completely redefined the concept of technological potential. Kai Chen's augmented systems continued to track the vessel's quantum signatures. "Look at how it's archiving the encounter," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of professional fascination and something deeper, a sense of pride that went beyond mere scientific observation. The ship's quantum neural network was not just defending or analyzing. It was learning, collecting, preserving. Each interaction became a part of its expanding understanding, a testament to a technological philosophy that saw conflict as a form of communication, defense as a method of understanding. Dr. Sophia Chen approached the primary observation station, her hands moving carefully across the quantum interfaces. "The technological transfer is unprecedented," she observed. "It's not just collecting data. It's creating a comprehensive understanding of current galactic technological capabilities." Marcus Liu shook his head in amazement. "Those weapon systems," he muttered, "they're not weapons in the traditional sense. They're adaptive learning platforms. Pure potential given technological form." The vessel began to transmit, not through traditional communication channels, but through complex quantum information patterns that seemed to bypass conventional communication technologies. Fragments of historical data, technological archives, and a comprehensive assessment of the encounter began to disperse across quantum communication bands. Elena Rodriguez understood then that they were witnessing something far more profound than a technological confrontation. This was a reintroduction, a declaration. Humanity was not gone. Humanity was not forgotten. The ship's final transmission carried a complexity that defied simple interpretation. Historical archives mixed with technological assessments, quantum information streams that told a story of survival, innovation, and potential. It was a message that went beyond simple communication, a comprehensive declaration of human technological capability. Humanity remembers. Kai Chen translated from the quantum transmission. Humanity endures. The Galactic Confederation's research teams found themselves in a state of collective shock. The vessel they had dismissed as a mere technological relic had just demonstrated a level of adaptive intelligence that completely challenged their understanding of technological development. Dr. Imani Rice was tracing the quantum information streams with growing excitement. "This is more than a technological demonstration," she said. "This is a comprehensive technological seed, a preservation mechanism for human potential." The ancient vessel began to move, not with the clumsy propulsion systems of current galactic technologies, but with a quantum adaptive navigation system that seemed to fold space itself. It was preparing to depart, having completed its comprehensive assessment. "It's leaving," Marcus Liu observed, his engineering expertise struggling to comprehend the quantum navigation systems. "But it's not running. It's documenting, preserving." The ship's final quantum transmission carried a message that would be debated by galactic researchers for generations, a comprehensive declaration of human potential that went far beyond simple technological demonstration. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as the vessel prepared to depart, understanding that they had witnessed something extraordinary. This was not just a ship. This was a promise, a declaration that human potential could never truly be extinguished. As the vessel began to manipulate quantum space, preparing to depart, its final transmission echoed across multiple communication bands, a message both simple and profound. Humanity endures. The Sigma Quadrant fell silent, but something had fundamentally changed. The galaxy would never be the same.